closed one chapter on quite an astonishing career. He's been part and the road captain of teams that have won the Tour de France on 5 occasions. As a rider himself, he's had 2 big wins, and he's also finished inside the top 10 in Tour of Flanders, in Paris-Roubaix. He's one of the most likeable guys in the peloton. He's one of the most experienced road captain. He can float around the peloton like no one else, understands the rhythm and dynamics of a bike race like no other, really. And he's moving on to a different chapter in his career with French team AG2R La Mondiale. You know what I'm talking about, because that's why you're sitting down. It is Mr. Luke Rowe. Throwing it. Taking his coat off. It's quite warm, isn't it? It's a warm show. It wasn't as warm
as when I was in here earlier. I had full-on sweats after running back from the train station. This is lovely.
It's all right, isn't it? It's all right. That's a good picture. Can you remember? That's obviously Champs-Élysées. What year?
21.
2021.
I think so. Hang on. Maybe 22.
Maybe 22.
We won the Team GC, hence the yellow helmet.
Yellow hat, yep.
Apart from that, 22 for what it's worth. Yeah, let's go for it. 22.
Let's call it 2022. Any other bidders? 2022, sold.
Done.
Luke, great to have you here, mate. You've had a magnificent career. And my introduction meant every word that said. You are somebody who lives and breathes cycling. You've ridden alongside some of the biggest champions of our sport, but you've actually written, you've written your own story as well. And how are you feeling right now? Because you're about to embark on a completely new chapter, and a bold move as well, moving away from the team that's been your home for well over a decade to a French squad, a successful French squad. More about that a little bit later. But where are you personally? Have you happy to have shut the door on the bike riding part of it? Are you content? You certainly look relaxed and at ease.
Yeah. No, I'm happy. I'm happy, and I think I've had my career. I've had 13 years of it. Prior to that, there's years where it's your life. So for a good 15, 16-year span now, it's been everything. I eat, slept, and breathed the sport. And it's quite nice to get to the end of my career, and actually I can look back and say, I had a level of success. Wasn't. You see some superstars up on the stage here. I was by no means a superstar, but I had my role, and I think I played my role to the best I could, the most part being a domestique in support of others. And I can look back and just say, I'm happy, and I had fun. I had a lot of fun, and there's no regrets. And I think that's nice that I can sit here and genuinely say that. And you might say no regrets, yeah, but you did some stupid shit. Yeah, of course I did, but
that's part of being.
It's kind of what makes me, and it's like I'll always wear my heart on my sleeve. Call a spade, see it as it is, call it as it is, and I'm just happy. I'm proud, and no regrets. And I think to finish your career like that, there's quite a lot in that. So I'm happy, mate.
Actually, one thing I've never asked you before, because we've chatted on quite a few occasions, but where does that spirit come from? Because you are you are a lead, I think you're a leader. You can lead, and you have led. You've made the calls on the road. You're not afraid to maybe make a decision that is contrary to what other people might think, and that takes a lot. It takes a lot of confidence, and you carry yourself in a certain way. Where do you think that came from? Were you aware of that quite young when you were racing in the early days with John Herity, or was it at school? Because you quite clearly early in your career taking aside the physiology, but you're a person that can lead and make decisions and are comfortable doing that.
Yeah, it's something that, I turned pro 2012, so that was my first year, and 12, 13, 14, there was no, for focusing on the road captain side of things, there was no real angle of that. It was back then when you come in as a young guy, and we spoke briefly about it with Sean earlier, is them years, it's like you get the bottles, you ride the front, you do the dirty work, and well, actually nothing really changed. But that's what I did the first couple of years, and that was what was expected of any neo-pro. And it wasn't really till 2014, 15 where this road captain topic and angle come up, and I just felt quite at ease with it. And it's not something that comes natural to everyone. I'm lucky it was. And I just remember thinking, most times, if you're asked a question and you're not sure of the answer, your first instinct is usually right. So in them situations, I just said, right, if in doubt, make your first instinct. And the worst call you can make is no call. You know, and you make a call and you hope it turns out right. It won't every time. For sure it won't every time. And you'll get back on the bus and they'll go, why did you do that? Rowe said. And you go, yeah, it's me. And you got to hold your hand up. And it's all well and good. Oh, that was fantastic. Who did that? Yeah, oh, I did that. But on the flip side, when it all goes tits up and whose mistake is it? Who said to do that? Yeah, it's me. So you got to take that responsibility, and it's in the highest level of the sport we have here and we love here. So it is quite, at times it was a little bit daunting, but it never really fazed me. And but where did it come from back in the day? I don't know. It's just something that you have deep within you, and it's not a superpower. I can't fly or shoot lasers from my eyes, but it's just something that I feel quite at home doing, and a certain level of honesty is involved with that role. Being able to, if a leader says two leaders say they're good, you can only back one, and you've got to say, right, we're backing that one, or whatever. It's just something I felt relatively at ease to from quite a young age.
Because it's making decisions in any walk of life can be quite a challenge, and some people would rather shy away from that, and that's fair enough, because there are people who are paid to make decisions. But cycling is different, isn't it? Because there will never ever be that situation again, and that it's gone, and that you make a decision rightly or wrongly, but you move on to the next. And cycling is so dynamic. It's a ridiculous amount of variables which makes this sport so wonderful, and it's why we all love it. But so you never stop learning. So it's that you might make a bad call, but you might consistently. But it's just about making a call at that given time, because that is the beauty of cycling. That's no doubt, to skip forward a bit, is why you're now in a role in a different team, because you've been identified as somebody that can make those difficult, dynamic calls under a stressful situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think, one thing you touched on there is you never stop learning, and that's something I've tried to, every day is a school day. Whether even the later years of my career, and this was quite late on in my career, but you're still trying to learn via other riders, via different channels. Oh, we got a new picture. Lovely. Last Tirreno this year. One of the last stage race I ever did. Anyway, let's not reminisce too much. And yeah, with the Decathlon, next job with Decathlon AG2R. I did hear you call it AG2R.
I called it the wrong team.
Mate,
I'm supposed to be a commentator, crying out loud.
That's a good few years ago, that was. But yeah, it was a tough move, to be honest, because I honestly thought I'd never leave Ineos and the Grenadiers.
A lot of people here. It was a curveball move, but a brilliant one, I think.
Yeah, expect the unexpected from me, Matt. But I think you got to I found I performed best on the bike when you're uncomfortable. I think if you get too comfortable, you kind of can go, on the hamster wheel, and you can just go through the motions a bit, which I kind of feared for myself if I stayed at Ineos, that I would just become too comfortable, and everyone, the way everything works, all the riders, and a lot of them, not just colleagues as mates. That was also a tricky dynamic. But, and a lot of people say, well, why did you leave? And there's no real reason. And obviously, what's going on, whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's no real reason. There's a good bunch of guys, good bunch of people, and I believe they're going to go on to doing good stuff again. But I think I'll perform best if I'm in an uncomfortable situation. And, it's a new team, it's a new role, it's a new language. I'm getting there, give me time. Full gas French lessons. So, just rip up the script sometimes. And, there's the easy option, that everything and you're comfortable, or there's this curveball that you go, let's just go for it and see what happens. I might be unemployed in 6 months, I don't know, but let's go for it.
We'll see. Because it's an interesting one, because the races that, you were road captain a lot of the time, where you thrived and where you had your own personal success was in the classics, in the most chaotic of races, which are essentially now ridden from start to finish. You've been up there in Omloop, you've been top 10 in Flanders, and in Roubaix, up there regularly, the races that you love, races that you thrive in physically, but also, I mean, you must relish the chaos, and maybe that is indicative of why you have taken a bit of a left turn in your career, is because there's a sense of chaos, but you clearly thrive on trying to cope and manage the chaos and make decisions. And there's no better illustration of that, even taking into account the Grand Tours, which kind of fall into a rhythm, don't they? But classics, there's nothing quite like them, is there? To experiment with thinking and stuff.
Yeah, I think like you can be on the start line, particularly the Tour de France is probably the most predictable. And you can be on the start line and you can, envision the stage and which guys want to go for the stage, which guys will pull, which guys want to go in the breakaway.
Sorts, isn't there? Yeah.
There's a certain format to it, and you can 90% suss it out. The other stage races a bit more unpredictable, and the classics, you can sit on the bus before in the meeting, and at a certain point you just say, let's just stop talking, because we can talk all day. And
that's Arenberg, isn't it?
Yeah, you can talk all day, and you can talk about every scenario, and it won't happen. And this picture here, this is Forrest Arenberg in the 2021 edition, which was back end of COVID year. So this was at the back end of the year, and there's obviously the wet, famous one where Colbrelli won.
That's Mads with you, isn't it?
Yeah. No.
It's the rainbow bands.
It is Mads, it's the rainbow bands, yeah. Do you know what? He gets back on his bike there, and he rides another 10 meters and realizes his frame's completely snapped.
Oh, God.
So so his
You're like, oi,
frame
mate.
right there is in pieces. But I was on this cobble section, and I was, there was two guys away. I was with them two guys, punctured, came back, and then there was a group behind. And we hit the Arenberg, I hit it first. Gianni won my wheel, so I was working for him. And I punctured, and I thought, right, if I can just get to the end of the section, I'll be all right. So I was right in the gutter, and I was trying to ride on the grass. And then, just as I was like almost towards the end, this guy pushed me, like leant over the barrier and pushed me, and I like lost my balance, and veered left, and I just got hit like a steam train by Pedersen, like completely winded me, and I caused a massive crash. But yeah, he nailed me. It was like getting hit by a bus. And
he's a unit, isn't he, Mads?
Yeah, I ruined his race. So across the finish line, I went to his bus. It says Mads here. They said no, he's getting a checkup in the hospital. I said, oh fuck.
Oh no.
So give me his number, and I rang him, and he was like, oh, don't worry, he's good as gold. But yeah, there I've just assassinated Mads in that picture.
I mean,
just thought I'd show you what we're looking at. I mean, everyone's clapping because I assassinated Mads.
I mean, it's kind of you're a strange bunch, aren't you?
Well, and guys, you nailed him.
A bit weird. But as we're looking at this iconic photo, mate, you kind of need to get that up somewhere in the house, because that's a beautiful photo. It sums up so much about the sport, but
it's not one of my proudest moments.
It's not, but it's maybe not. Maybe there are other choices, but we're veering off topic a little bit. But what I want you to do the best you can, because Roubaix was a race that you loved, and as I said, I'm going to repeat it, finish in the top 10, finish just outside the top 10, regularly up there, a race that you lived and breathed, very important part of your season. But can you just describe to us the approach to the Arenberg? Because it's one of the questions I love to ask different pros, and forgive me if it sounds a bit repetitive, but there's nothing quite like it on earth, is there? Hurtling towards that sector, and it'll never be the same again now if they keep that little deviation in, will it? No,
and I think they're going to. I think they're going to keep it in. They did a questionnaire to the riders. Actually, every race, this is something you might not know. After every race, you get a questionnaire about the race you've just ridden. So you'll race on a Sunday, and on a Tuesday or Wednesday, a survey will come through, and they'll ask, and every rider fills it in if they want to. And one of the big talking points, obviously, was the chicane, and the riders unanimously voted, yes, we love it. Which all the hoo-ha before, actually they loved it, because you hit it at 10, 20k an hour, because it is scary. And I've seen many a time you enter that and there's just bodies, and you hear bodies behind. There's always a crash.
I don't think I've ever, in the modern era, seen or commentated on an edition of Roubaix where within the first 100 meters, you've got some guys borderline career-ending injuries. We've got Johan Museeuw, I don't know if he's here now, but he's knocking about. He had a near career-ending injury, and you just know that some riders are going to hit the deck and they're not going to get up. Yeah. And that isn't good enough, really, mate, is it? In terms of the safety of riders, there's the legacy of that iconic stretch of road which has been there for the best part of 100 years, but there's also the increasing speeds you hit it. There is a responsibility to make sure that you guys are going to be okay as best you can and control the uncontrollables to a degree.
No, I think they've made a great decision. And when you're hitting that, so you got Havel-Wee before, and then you got about 6K tarmac, but then you take the final left-hander and it's like bang in front of you, and everyone's done a recon, everyone knows where it is, it's game on. If you have a tailwind, you can hit that at over 60k an hour, and it's just, you hit it and you kind of, it's a bunch sprint,
it's slightly downhill,
it's a bunch
isn't
sprint,
it? Yeah.
and the profile of the Arenberg is down, up, like maybe minus 1%, 1.5%, so it's like a, whatever the shape that is. And that first bit, from there to there, all you're thinking is, don't puncture, don't crash, don't puncture, don't crash, don't puncture, don't crash. And then on that bit, you're a lot safer. The speed is reduced significantly. You kind of find your place a bit. But for that first section, and if someone punctures or crashes in front of you, there's no, if you think of stopping distance on the road, that's doubled on the cobbles. And the amount of times I've entered that and you just see people in a bad way, or you hear about it, and I think they made the right decision, but it's one of few sections like you are nervous for hitting. Every other section you're quite confident, but and let's be honest, most 95% of the bikes used in this race now are the exact same as the bikes that are used across the whole year. So to think that you're entering that on the same bike as you're riding a Alpe d'Huez on, it's not really built for purpose, and it's got that far advanced with bikes and aero and technology and weight that they're not built for purpose, and the bikes aren't designed to be hitting that at 60k an hour. And it's not the rider error, it's someone's puncturing, or someone's having a crack, or something's breaking on the bike, and that's not one brand, it's just across the broad spectrum of bikes, they're not made for it.
That's an interesting take, because you'd have thought the contrary. You'd have thought but like you say,
and tubeless, the new tires, when they come off the rim, if you haven't got the inner liners on, I'm going a bit technical here.
I'm sure there's a few geeks.
The tires just come straight off the rim. So where you used to have like a typical tubular where you glue it on old school, if you punctured, you still had a bit of leeway. Now the tires come straight off the rim, and good night, Irene, you're gone.
So this conversation is going to skip about, because it's the way my mind works, because you touched on some quite interesting things there. You're moving to a team riding different bikes, Van Rysel bikes you're going to be using next year with AG2R.
Decathlon AG2R.
Decathlon AG2R. I will get it right by the end of the night, ladies. Keep picking me up on it, because that's the only way you learn.
Okay.
Keep picking me up on it. What do you, from a tech perspective and from a tactical perspective, what do you think you can bring to the team? And off the back of that, you said there's no point where you made the decision. There must have been a point where you said, yes, I'm going to do this. So there's two questions there. What do you think you can bring to the team? This isn't an interview, by the way. It might sound like it. Not a job interview. Got the job. It's fine. What do you think you can bring to the squad? And what changes do you think that you can affect, or little iterations that can equip the riders better for the Classics campaign, which is going to be your main focus on the squad?
I would say, first of all, one of the first words you mentioned there was technical. I wasn't actually, in terms of the tech and the equipment, I was never that into it. I was never that, they'd give me a bike and I'd race it.
But you're aware of the fact that it isn't fit for purpose in certain environments, though. So you're clearly across it, aren't you?
I see them blowing up on the Arenberg. I got a certain knowledge, but some guys are really geeky with that type of stuff, which is great. But I was like, give me my bike, tell me what tire pressure to use, tell me what wheels to use, I'll use it.
Sure.
But I think, I'd say there's two main angles. I'd say tactically, I think I can have a bit of an input. I think I always had quite a good eye for, prior to a race and during a race, kind of seeing and trying to predict how the race would go from the outset, but also during the race, assessing the rivals, assessing other teams, assessing our own team, and trying to get the best out of that scenario. Because you can overcomplicate it, but essentially all you're trying to do is figure out what every other team is doing, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, doing the same for yourself, and trying to exploit the situation. That's all you're trying to do as a team, as a rider, as a Rowe captain or DS. So I think I always did quite a good job of that. So hopefully I can carry that over to the DS side of things. And then I think another one of my strengths was getting the most out of a group. I'd turn up to a race and there might be a guy who doesn't back himself, or you look around the room and you go, actually, we haven't got a big leader here. How are we going to get the most out of this race? We got a 4-day stage race. All the big hitters are in the Giro, Tour de Vuelta. On paper, our squad is quite average, but right, okay, we got these 4 days, this terrain. How can we use our 7 guys? So just trying to get the most out of a group, and that's on and off the bike. Because I often found, if you get it right from day one and you set a precedent in that off the bike, you have a good group. That doesn't mean going for a beer. That means, having a game of cards after dinner or just having a laugh or whatever it is. If you have a good group off the bike, I'm convinced it's got a direct correlation with on-bike performance.
Well, it's trust, isn't it?
It's trust.
The trust is a massive thing, and belief. I mean, that's a lot of trust there. I mean, you nearly wiped out G on the final stage of the Tour. I mean, actually, the flicked. We're going to be all over the place with this conversation, which I really love. I love it because we can't not talk about not particularly this photo, but your relationship with Geraint. Of course, it's an enduring relationship, one that's continued through you being, up to 7 years of age to now. Obviously, G's got another year on his contract with Ineos. He's going to ride that out. You're moving on, but that's what we're talking about. Again, not every team can be built on riders that have known each other since they were a kid, but the essence of that is massively important. And if you've got a team that trust each other, understand each other, and a lot of that's non-verbal as well, just looking at and reading somebody in a bike race, because you can't always commute verbally. There's a real nuanced element to understanding the way somebody behaves, isn't it? But I don't think there's a relationship quite like yours, actually, in the modern peloton, mate. When you look at the enduring relationship you and G have had, I don't think, can anybody think of a relationship on the male side of the sport or across men's and women's sport, cycling, there's ever been such a tight, close-knit, almost brotherly relationship? Anybody got any ideas? No? There we go. That's quite,
best relationship
that's quite something, though, isn't
cycling.
it? That's quite something, though, isn't it, when you think back, mate,
Do you know, I've never really thought of it like that, but, Sorry?
Pardon? The Brownlees, yeah. I was thinking road cycling, but yeah, I mean, and they actually are brothers, so they're cheating slightly.
Go on. Nah, we're closer than them.
Pogacar, still good. This isn't technically a Q&A, but we'll take one more from the front row. Adam and Simon Yates. Again, they're cheating. They are brothers.
They're
Can't
cheating.
take it.
But
let's carry on.
That last photo, what was, actually, just to rewind a little bit, when you say how, and rewind it back to the start, we were as old school as, we're going out on laps of the block. Who do you want to be? Oh, I want to be, oh, crikey. Someone's tucked me up.
That is...
who do you want to be? Oh, you can be Bartoli, I'll be Pantani, and envisaging that. And then further down the line, he rode the Tour de France, I rode the Tour de France, he won it. And that photo, the one before where we were both there with the flag, we did a What's Occurring last week in the Lowry, and I told this story for the first time. And I think that was one of the nicest things he's done for me. Because G is lovely, but he's got his, and this isn't meant to be mean, but he has got a bit of a selfish way. You
have to be.
You have to be. Yeah, it's not a negative. And then we had a team photo at the back of the peloton, all of us lined up, champagne, whatever. And I went back to the front of the peloton, right, we're just cruising along into Paris. And on the radio it said, oh, look, but can you come back to the back of the peloton? I thought, just been there, mate. So I went back, and he was like, oh, got a Welsh flag, we'll have a photo of it with me.
Just you and him?
Yeah, and I thought, crikey, mate, that's just gone full circle. Yeah. You've just won this race. The Tour de France, you've won it. This is your moment. You're riding into Paris, and you've just gone, oh, I'll call him back, try a photo with the Welsh flag. And I said to him, and it's brings back a lot of memories, quite emotional, that he just thought to do that. He's the star of the show. I did my bit, but he's just won the Tour de France, yellow jersey. Probably one of the most iconic victories, trophies, is the yellow jersey in professional sport. You say to anyone, yellow jersey, it's Tour de France. And in that moment, he said, right, Luke, come to the back of the peloton, and have a photo. And I just thought, credit to the guy, chapeau.
That's his proper friend, mate. He's top
bloke.
A true gent. It does actually deserve a round of applause. But a lovely story. And the thing is, mate, you know, cycling, Luke, is so brutal. I don't want to put anybody off. And you've got a couple of very young riders here, and cycling is extraordinarily hard. The sacrifices you make, there's a lot of sacrifices, especially to make it to the top level. But but there's so much but you get so much from it on a personal level, but also the friendships, the places you go. It's a wonderfully rich sport, and for you to continue to stay in the sport, can you see yourself doing anything else at the moment apart from staying within the sport? Because it is exceptionally familial, isn't it? It's a place that offers safety, although there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of danger, there's a lot of risk, a lot of sacrifice. There's also a lot of comfort within it as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there's, the risk factor is obviously high for anyone who rides a bike, and for anyone who races a bike, perhaps slightly higher. But I would never envisage myself in another walk of life. First of all, I've got 0 qualifications in anything.
Nor have I, mate. I've got O-level, I think grade C cookery.
O-level, you're showing your age, yeah?
Yeah, I am. O-level.
A-levels are my age. And I haven't got any of them. Can't even spell GCSE. But yeah, if I went into another walk of life, I'd be underqualified. But it's not about that. It's just the sport I love. Yeah. I'll always, even the last 13 years, if I wasn't riding a race, certain races I wouldn't watch. There is some boring races, let's face it. But I'd sit at home and watch it, and I'd just be there as a fan, watching a race. In the last 6 months, I watched a lot of the Tour de France.
Did some commentary as well, didn't we?
Did some commentary.
Yeah, we did some commentary. You're very good, mate. You've got some cracking tweets, mate. You've got some really nice tweets. Very good commentator. Yeah.
This is Tour of Britain, Caerphilly.
Oh God, yeah. Caerphilly Mountain.
That's my brother, the boxer. My wife has got a Welsh flag. Actually, Hannah Walker is dressed as a pumpkin. You'll have seen her walking around. Crikey, yeah.
Not dressed as a pumpkin. Yeah. Some fun times. Yeah. I've lost my thread. Just looking at Hannah Walker dressed as a pumpkin, quite strange. But I mean, it's very, very difficult to distill the best part of 15 years, mate, into a 40-minute conversation. We could be here all night and into next weekend. But looking forward to next year, what are you most excited about? I mean, there's a lot to be. There's the unknown, I guess. It brings a lot of excitement for the reasons we've already talked about. But what are you most looking forward to next year?
I think I would get the most success. If you look at like the 30 guys and you go, right, the top few, you could go to a big race with one of them, a Benoit Cosnefroy or Oliver Nason or Biziger or one of our top guys. You go to a race and you could win with them. I'm not overly, it would be nice, but I'm not overly, what would give me the most self-satisfaction is of the bottom 5 guys, who you probably look at now a year out and say they're not going to get another contract, is to see some of them success. That would bring me more like self-satisfaction. So, of course, any professional sports team is based on victories and results.
It's quite a disruptive ideology. It's quite a disruptive set of ideas there, but I like it.
It is. I mean, when we go to a race, we have to win and we have to look at the top 5 guys. But what I'm looking forward to and what would give me the most, I guess, the biggest smile on my face, for use of another word, is just to look at a guy now and go, you haven't got a great chance of success, and try and help him and flip that around and give him success. That would give me a lot of, that'd put a big smile on my face.
Because there's been quite a few changes in the team. It's a different looking team than this year. A very successful team. And we were talking about it just before we came on stage. There's 30 odd wins this year for the squad. Their best year ever. And that comes with it, especially a few of the big riders moving, especially Ben O'Connor, Paris-Roubaix moving across to Quick Step. So there's a different feel to the team, but a really high level of success to back it up. So that's going to bring with it a little bit of pressure as well.
Yeah, I actually joined the team at quite a tricky time, really, because I don't know the stats, I probably should, but they've won maybe like 10, 15 races, 10, 15 races, 10, 15 races, and then this year they've won 30.
Yeah.
So to join the year after that is tough, because how do you follow up an amazing, great, successful year? You're almost setting yourself up to fail, and a lot of what we're doing now is, gassy that, isn't it? What does success...
It is good stuff, but quite gassy.
Yeah.
Good deal, though.
what does success look like for Decathlon AG2R in 2025? And it's,
Sure.
well, is it 32 because they won 30 this year? But if you look at the averages over the year, actually, in my eyes, 25 would be a success. So I'm joining the team at a tricky time, but they've got a real long-term plan. They've got long-term goals, and I think they're actually one of few teams in the whole of the World Tour, actually, after speaking to quite a few of them, who have got a real defined, clear goal of what they want to do and how they want to get there. Which
does that attract you as part of? You obviously must have had those conversations before you signed on the contract. Did that plan have a certain appeal to you?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, because I went. I did speak to a few teams, and I was just trying to suss it out and see where to go. And I went in to them, and they had like this presentation and showed me everything. And it's like, this is where we are now. And actually, they were really realistic with where they are now. They say, see all these wins we've had this year. It looks great on paper, doesn't it? That's not where we are. We've batted above. We've got lucky. We've had some very opportunist wins. So they weren't going, we've won this. They're like, we've won this, but that's not actually where we are. That's not a direct
That's honest. That's honest, though, isn't it?
That's honest.
Yeah.
And they said, this is where we want to be, bam, 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 and this is how we plan on getting there. And you go, fuck, it's a long-term realistic goal. So, yeah, I really bought into that. And they're actually, it's amazing after speaking to so many teams, so few teams, with big budget. And I'm not on about Ineos for what it's worth. It's not focusing on them. I spoke to lots of teams. They're just like going through the motions of year on year. And right, let's try and go to every race, let's try and win, let's get success. But there's no 1, 2, 5, 10-year plan and how we're going to get there. But AG2R, Decathlon AG2R, we're spot on.
Now, you've just come off the back when you're still a part of the Ineos Grenadiers set up until the 1st of January, yeah? And you've just had your end of year get together, looking ahead, and without wanting to go into the minutiae of a difficult year for Ineos Grenadiers, I think it's fair to say. And you know more than anybody, really. It's only like you and G have been there the longest, even when you look at the staff. You are proper OGs of that squad. And you're not part of that setup anymore. What do you think the future looks like for that squad as part of the change? And what do you think they need to shift on a broad sense rather than going into any particular detail? What do you think they need to do to shift and change and be successful again at the level that they're used to?
I think definitely a bit of a reset. I think definitely a bit of a reality check in that they're not one of the top few teams in the world, and they need to kind of accept that and a certain level of like look at yourself in the mirror and realize that, which they have done. You'd be naive not to sit here and say that they haven't had a really poor year. Yep. It has been really poor. I think a big part of that is obviously I was injured.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah. Good point to mention that, mate. Yeah.
No, but I think what you got to remember is it's such a tough place in this sport now for any team who hasn't got one of these few big dogs. And I'm talking, you know they are. If you haven't got a Poggi, a Remco, a Van Aert, a Van der Poel, maybe a Roglic, maybe one or two others I've missed. But if you haven't got one of them guys, and if you look across the season, all the big races and all the big wins, they've been won by such a small minority of riders. They've just wiped the floor with everyone.
Yeah.
And
it's been unprecedented, really, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got one of them, it's a tough place to be. And, we had one of them. We had Egan Bernal. We had the Giro and the Tour winner. You back him, you pay him big bucks. There's your 5-year contract. Go deliver for 5 years. He had a horrific crash 2 weeks into a 5-year contract. And he's got that contract, you pay him, and it's through no fault of his own.
All the teams, it's just one of those
things.
Yeah,
you back your horse. It's a horse race. We backed him 5 years, and he had an horrific accident. And he was our guy. It's Froome, then it was G, and then G's still there or thereabouts, but we backed Egan. And he had an horrific crash. So if you haven't got one of these golden nuggets, it is a tough place to be. But I think just one thing to remember is these owners are, multi-billion businesses and all this jazz, and they're not fazed by a little bit of failure and a slight dip. They get a dip to them is big time. This is like one odd year in a long sporting career. So, I do back them. I do owe them a lot. They have been brilliant. Like last week, they had their end of season awards.
You said it was one of the best ever, and I wasn't there, unfortunately.
That's why it was the best ever.
Cheers, mate.
No, it's not. Matt usually presents. He's fantastic. They invited me to that, got me up on the stage, gave me a plaque of the jerseys I wore. They don't have to do that, do they?
Mostly guys that are leaving go on to they don't go to this particular.
Never.
They've only done it for one or two riders in the history, haven't they?
They have, yeah, and they didn't have to do that. So, if they were acting like clowns and treating people badly, I'd say I got nothing to lose. But it's a good organisation, good people. And I'm pretty sure these things do full circle, and I'm pretty sure they'll be back to the top in not 1 or 2 years, or even 3. I think they need a good cycle. 4, 5, 6 years, they'll be back.
Exactly. It's going to take quite a big shift, isn't it? And for the reason you mentioned, all those the 4 or 5 riders that you mentioned are all locked in to 4, 5, 6 year deals as well, and then they're not going anywhere. So it's an interesting one. Luke, we've only got a couple of minutes to go. We're dwelling on this rather magnificent picture on the screen. Again, that's on Caerphilly Mountain again. Where else would it be? But one more question. The finish is on a high. It's been a wonderful conversation, mate. It's gone very quickly. But if you could relive one moment of your career that's given you the most satisfaction, in a career where you've had wins, you've had a couple of wins yourself, but most of your satisfaction, I guess, has been supporting others. You've been a selfless, very generous rider, but what singular moment of success would you relive if you were given the opportunity? I could wave a magic wand and say, you can relive the sensations that you felt when this happened. What would it be?
It would be probably 2015 Tour de France. First, most special Tour de France was winning it with G, obvious reasons, but it would be the 2015 Tour de France. That feeling of Paris, like I'd only ever seen the Champs-Élysées in Paris, like you all have on TV, and that feeling where you turned the corner and for the first time you look up and you see the Arc de Triomphe, and the first tour I went to, we won it, and we were leading the peloton. So it was us 8 guys around the corner onto the Champs-Élysées, and you could see the Arc on the front. That exact moment was just something I'll never forget. And still thinking now, I remember that whole lapse to the Champs-Élysées, I was just goosepimples. And even now it's like, that was badass. That exact moment. Because you only ever see it on TV, and it's special. There's loads of people, and pulling on there with like a little bit of yellow or whatever we had, with Froome in the wheel. Doesn't get better. Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful image to end it on. We've got 7 seconds left. We can just sort of relax and soak that moment up.
Does it blow up when it gets to 0?
It does explode. Just be careful. Just stand back. Luke Rowe, thank you very much indeed, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.